Hello and welcome to this special bulletin with me, Ayushman Singh Jamon. On the top international stories making headlines around the globe. The indictment of former US President Donald Trump has left Republicans furious, ladies and gentlemen, with the 2024 presidential elections drawing near. Republicans are waging war against Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg after he dragged Trump to court and secured an indictment in the hush money scandal. Some Republicans have accused Bragg, a Democrat, of political motivations in bringing the criminal charges against Trump. In view of this, the House Judiciary Committee, led by Ohio Republican Jim Jordan, is holding a field hearing near the offices of the Manhattan District Attorney. Republicans have attacked Bragg's credibility, claiming deteriorating law and order in Manhattan and New York City. Bragg's office claims that crime rates have only decreased in 2023 as the war of words only escalate.
And I never thought anything like this could happen in America. Never thought it could happen. The only crime that I have committed is to fearlessly defend our nation from those who seek to destroy it. This fake case was brought only to interfere with the upcoming 2024 election, and it should be dropped immediately. They have really stepped up their efforts by indicting the 45th president of the United States, who received $75 million votes, which is more than any sitting president in the history of our country.
It was quite a homecoming for Donald Trump, but the indictment is not any surprise to us. We've known that it was probably going to be basically focused on these falsification of business records, and that's exactly what we're seeing. Alvin Bragg is a methodical, careful, experienced prosecutor, and I'm sure that he has really carefully combed all the evidence and thought about how he needs to corroborate evidence, because look, he has a potentially flawed witness in Michael Cohen. He's admitted to lying and changing his story. He's a convicted felon. And so he is open to cross-examination. So I think we'll find that Bragg has made sure to get text messages, audio calls, lots of documents that will support and corroborate his testimony. Bragg wants jurors that are willing to go through the layers of this prosecution, because they have to be willing to look through and see that this is a sort of a technical accounting violation, but yet the underlying crime itself, whether it be tax laws or election law crimes, what it really comes down to is Trump trying to deceive the electorate, and he wants them to care about that. So if there's one thing about Donald Trump, it's that you can predict, it's that he's unpredictable. It's very hard to say how this will affect him. On the one hand, we're seeing a rise in the polls and in his fundraising. On the other hand, I think, how can the GOP go forward with a campaign where, the top of the ticket is somebody who's under indictment and a criminal defendant? So it's very hard to know how this will go. Our Constitution doesn't bar, somebody for running for election, but it's hard to imagine, that path. But, you never know with Donald Trump.
I'm joined by Calvin Duck, Democratic strategist on the broadcast. Thank you, Calvin, for joining us on CNN News 18 with your perspective. My first question is that how do you see this offensive coming in from the Republicans being led by Jim Jordan? Do you think it will boomerang, because Jim Jordan isn't anyone with a squeaky clean record himself?
Yes, you're right. Good to be here. I think what is very, very clear is that this is an effort to interfere with an ongoing investigation and to intimidate the DA, his office, influence jurors. This is kind of unheard of. It's no surprise that supporters of President Trump would be against the prosecution, and they are totally free to speak their minds about it. the House Republicans, led in this case by Jim Jordan, they're using the power that the voters gave to them to be basically an extension of Donald Trump's defense team. And I think that voters are going to see through that. As you mentioned, Jim Jordan has some things that he probably doesn't want to field work hearing done about him or its district. And I think that one of the things we've already seen today, we'll continue to see more during this field hearing, is the Democrats are going to use it to expose weaknesses of the Republicans, bringing their own witnesses to talk about how Republicans have ignored gun reform, compromise on government spending, and crime.
Right. And Calvin, but let's look at the politics surrounding this entire thing. Even though Donald Trump has been indicted, he's still hammering that point that this is a witch hunt against me. He's done that throughout his presidency. Do you think that still resonates in the red states? And this strategy of Jim Jordan and the other House Republicans to go after Alvin Bragg is just a continuation of that strategy, because they see some payout in the red states in the run-up to the 2024 presidential elections?
I think that witch hunt mantra works with Trump's base. These are the people that are going to support Trump literally no matter what he does. Let's remember that during the 2016 campaign, one of the things Donald Trump said that is extremely true, he said, I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and I wouldn't lose any voters. That group of people will always receive and repeat the witch hunt narrative. However, most Americans, including Republicans, know that everything can't be a witch hunt. And if you call every action against you for things that you did a witch hunt, you lose credibility. So in the short term, you're going to have people, Trump's base, who are really going to get fired up and believe it's a witch hunt, but that number is not growing. And I think as it gets close to 2024, it might actually decrease.
Right. And Calvin, when it comes to this entire hush money scandal, I mean, I remember when he was running for president, what he said on that hot mic, in that bus, it didn't lead to any kind of reduction in votes. Now, this is hush money to an adult film star, and for that, for falsifying business records, he's been indicted. When it comes to, his dwindling political clout, if you will, this is not the nail in the coffin. Do you see that coming down the line? And what makes you think is the reason that his clout is dwindling when it comes to pan-American politics?
Well, unfortunately, I think his clout is not dwindling among Republicans. I do think that one of the things we say about politics here in this country is campaigns and elections are about adding, not subtracting, meaning that, you have your base, but you've got to get more people that didn't vote for you last time, for example. Donald Trump is doing nothing to increase those numbers. What he's doing is, galvanizing the base that he already has. Now, when it comes to these legal issues, we know that there are several more coming down the line, several more that deal with topics that are, a bit more serious, like interference in the 2020 election, the whole scandal with the classified documents at his resort in Mar-a-Lago. So I think that what's happening is Donald Trump is being held to the standard that we all should be held to, that no person, even a former president, is above the law. I think when it comes to who the Republicans will choose for their nominee for 2024, if it was for right now, they choose Donald Trump because his popularity is increasing among the Republican Party. But I think the Republicans who actually want to win an election are going to realize next year that they can't with Donald Trump, or at least they don't have good chances of winning.
And in your opinion, so like this factionalism that you're talking about, do you think that this war within the Republican Party between a Marjorie Taylor Greene and a Lauren Boebert on one side and a Mitt Romney on the other side, this will only escalate in the weeks to come?
Yes, and if it continues the way it is now, the Mitt Romneys of the party, the moderate voices of the party, they have very, very, very little power within the Republican Party. We got to remember, it wasn't that long ago when the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, had to basically give away the shop just to get the votes from his own party to become Speaker of the House. And we have the debt ceiling negotiations that are happening. And those same Republicans you mentioned, the Marjorie Taylor Greenes and the Lauren Boeberts, they're calling for serious disruption in the U.S. economical system because of their particular positions, and they're not going to budge. So I think that for now, they have the control of the Republican Party. It remains to be seen if more moderate voices, those kind of Mitt Romneys you mentioned, if they are going to speak up and actually be supported by the rest of the party.
Right. And my final question before I let you go, Calvin, you're pointing out the fact that Trump is not adding to his base. He's still riling up the old MAGA base. Now, in your opinion, is there a cardinal sin that he can commit which can even alienate the MAGA base? Because at the end of the day, I still feel that the Republicans are still think that their best bet to rally voters is Donald Trump, even though he doesn't seem to rally all Republican voters. He's kept away the moderates, he's kept away other sections of the Republican Party, he's only keeping the MAGA base. But he's that one leader who controls such a large support base within the Republican Party. Is there any cardinal sin? Because you've had the January 6th attacks, you've had the Russia scandal. The MAGA base is still strongly with Donald Trump. In your opinion, is there, I'll say that question again, a cardinal sin that he can commit that can completely exile him from the Republican Party?
Well, let me tell you what I learned during Trump's first term and through the campaign of 2016 and 2020. Everything that Trump has done or alleged to be done is a part of the package. And people have accepted all parts of that package, whether it be to access Hollywood tapes you mentioned, or the allegation of sexual assault, the racism, the calls for intimidation of election. If you support Donald Trump, you've accepted all of that as it's a part of the package. I honestly can't think and shudder to think what he could do that hasn't already been a part of his persona, his brand. That would be that cardinal sin. I think it would have to be something extremely serious. And I don't know how you get more serious than some of the stuff he's already done.
And Calvin, my final question, now we've pointed out that, you have Matt Gaetz, you have Lauren Boebert, you have Marjorie Taylor Greene, you have Jim Jordan. They have all hitched their wagons to Donald Trump. Do you think when their seats come up for re-elections that it will be the MAGA voters that will see them through? Or do you sense, like what happened in Georgia, where all those Trump candidates, they lost to the Democrats in the Senate runoffs? Do you think that could be repeated in the seats of all these Trump radicals who are making all the noise for him in Washington, D.C.?
I don't think that the ones you mentioned, Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Boebert, or Jordan, I don't think they're really under that much of a threat of losing their seats, mostly because of gerrymandering. Marjorie Taylor Greene's seat, for example, in Georgia, I think it's 90-some% Republican. So unless something really, really egregious happens, they're not going to lose their seat. Because remember, they're in the House Representatives, where they represent districts of around 700,000 people, and their districts are pretty safe. No matter what's going on around them, if the people in their district want to see them continue, they'll continue to get reelected.
Right. Thank you, Calvin Dark, Democratic strategist, for decoding the politics surrounding this entire legal trouble that Donald Trump finds himself in, as well as the Republican offensive.